Hello, 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 Savannah. Welcome to another edition of Candidly Kesha. We are so happy to be here with you tonight. We're coming to you just a little bit later than usual, but it is campaign season, y'all. And we're going to talk all things election tonight. We have been busy. We've had a lot of um, unfortunate family circumstances to occur in my husband's family by way of death. So it's taken us out of the loop a little bit. We thank you for all of your support and sentiments and wishes for our bereaved family. And so, with that, and without further ado, I have asked two of Savannah's most active and engaged and knowledgeable political activists in our community. I must say about Pastor Leonard Small and former Commissioner John McMasters. I met you all shortly before the election of 2019, and it was your later support that came that helped me over the hump, I'd like to think. In addition, throughout my tenure on city council, you both have been very supportive. You've been amazing sounding boards, and you both have told me what I needed to hear and not necessarily what I wanted to hear. And with that, I find myself here taking this leap, this tall, giant step into the top job here in the city of Savannah. And so we have had a lot of maneuvering, a lot of activity, more than usual, I'd like to think. But I want you all to be the judge of that because you've been at this for far longer than I have. And I asked you on tonight because I am all about educating the electorate. Despite all that has been said and done, I don't know that there has ever been a time like now where citizens have been so engaged, so motivated, and so connected to the political process. People actually know what district they live in. They know who their district representatives are. They know when our council meetings are. They even know some of the tenets of our charter. And so I'd like to think that we have engaged our citizenry to the extent that we have expanded the political experience of the Gold Dome into the homes of the citizens and residents of Savannah. And so, with that, I just want to leave it up to you guys tonight to talk about what your thoughts are, what your projections are. We know that there have been a lot of formal polling. We have done some informal polling because we can't afford those big polls. But I imagine that the results of that poll show that I'm ahead somehow because you know, despite the trepidation that some people have, people ask me how I'm doing, how the race is going, what my thoughts are, and sincerely, Savannah, I feel like I'm in like what is that cruise mode. I feel like I'm being pushed by a force that's far greater than me. I sleep very well at night. I'm not worried. I'm not anxious. We're 2 weeks out from Election Day. I feel like I should be. When I think about the election of 2019, this time, 4 years ago, I was. But I have this peace that is surpassing all of my understanding right now, and this calm and this resolute. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't want anybody around me worrying and scurrying, right? We need positivity. We don't need anxiousness because that kind of probably will rub off on me. So I want to stay in this healthy place, in this healthy state of mind, because my outlook is positive. And my outlook is positive because when I see that your opponent has raised nearly $700,000 to get rid of me for a job that only pays $50,000. And we now know that these big names across our state are coming to Savannah up for a state individual. Um, I don't know how unhinged I must be. I don't know how ignorant or how disconnected or unrelatable. Savannah, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm feeling good, really, really good about myself, y'all. I mean, hey, I got the juice. We got the.
Yeah.
You've worked really hard, and you've been very true to what you promised people. Obviously, you have been impeded through various shenanigans and maneuvers, uh, like agenda access, but you have persevered and stayed the course, and I think you'll be rewarded for that.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to put on the table straight off the bat is the, the question keeps coming up over and over and over. And yes, I do believe I believe you're going to win. Okay, I'm in the streets. I got my fingers on the pulse of the people. I believe we're going to win. But one of the assurances I think that they're trying to get some leverage on is this thing called decorum. And what I wanted to make sure people understand is that dysfunction in a family, in a church, in a business, in government comes from the top. So if we can change the top, and particularly since I know your demeanor, I know your candor, I know your fairness. What people don't realize is that if Keisha Gibson Carter, who has been unfairly treated as a councilwoman, has been under a circumstance that's dictatorial in that Van Johnson does not check with anybody. Hit everything you see on council is his agenda and his alone. Obviously, you're not going to take up this office and do it like he's done it and be as draconian and as autocratic as he's been. That's the assurance I think that most people are looking for. The mere fact that this dysfunction that was caused by unfairness won't continue after January 1st.
Well,
I
we hope that's the case. John?
I have a different idea to put on the table, and it goes like this: the 2019 election was a renaissance moment,
Mm-hmm.
a uh, a true north star. It was a tipping point of unparalleled importance because never before had we elected a group of reformers, positive reformers, progressive minded people that said, "Hey, we think there's a better way to do business uh, under the Gold Dome." And I don't mean retail business. I mean the people's business. So um, previously, and I've been here 31 years, through Floyd and Edna and Otis and Eddie, it really has been a total decorum the way they like it, which is business as usual, which is what people rejected in 2019. So it was a Renaissance election. Now, um, little did we know that behind all the rhetoric, this mayor is really no different, for all intents and purposes, than any of those prior mayors. He is a continuation of the status quo. And you represented a departure from that, a fresh departure. And people put their trust in you. I'm confident that people will put their trust in you again uh, in this bid because we didn't get what we were promised. And I, I've been to a lot of the forums, and I've heard people say we didn't get what we voted for. What happened? So this election, I'm hopeful, is a recovery election to go back to that opportunity to change how we do business in Savannah. And I mean, less support for the tourism and hospitality industry and more support for neighborhoods. I'm not saying no support. I'm just saying we have an imbalance here that has been perpetuated, for the last 30 years, as long as I've been here. Leonard can probably say it's been longer because he's been here longer. So anyway, that's my take on this election. I'm really hoping it is a recovery election, and uh, it's the best thing that could happen to us is to give us a chance to bring a little bit of fairness and equity and best practices to the way we do business.
And ultimately, that's what my intentions are, is to give government back to the people. And as much as I appreciate the nice things that you all say about me and remember about my work on council and previous to coming into public office, I cringe when people congratulate me or say, I can't wait until you win. Or when someone says, I deserve to be mayor. Um, One of the indicators for me that I am in the right place at the right time is the notion that nothing makes me, or the reality that nothing makes me more uncomfortable than to hear those words. Because for me, it's not about me. And really and truly, it's nothing that I really want for myself more than I want better for Savannah. And so I see, without getting all spiritual and religious, I truly see this as a part of a calling, if you will, in that the jury is still out. We will see on November 7th if I was called to run and to agitate the ground, to till, if you will, to bring things to the forefront
Yes.
for somebody else to carry it forward, or if I'm running to truly win. And regardless of any amount of money or any endorsements, or with an exception of the citizens' vote, of course,
Mhm.
whatever God has planned for this election, it will happen.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I often hear people say that, but Moses could have run the other way. Okay, he was a fugitive of Egypt. He could have said, "Lord, I know you're
See,
talking to me, but
I knew not to start spiritual with you. Go ahead, Pat.
Moses could have run the other way. Jonah did. And here's the thing. I remember you and I back in the early days of this administration with all the foolishness that was going on, and I remember saying to you, "Well, Keisha, you must realize that maybe you were born for a time such as this." And I remember you dropping your head and shaking it. Pastor, I don't know, Pastor. I don't know. I said, no, no, you need to understand. And I know people don't necessarily want to wax biblical, but I'm biblical. I can't help myself. So, but nobody who really works to do his will particularly wants to do it. Moses didn't want to go back to Egypt. Jeremiah said he was too young. Isaiah said he had a filthy mouth. Elijah said, "Kill me just like you killed my daddies before me, instead of having me do this." Nobody wants to do this, but there's a calling. There's an urgency that comes up from the inside. John doesn't have to be involved in politics in Savannah. Every few months, he just jump up and go back to California. Anyway, so I don't have to be involved in the fight for the weeping time, or pastoring Litway at this point in my life, or dealing with the homeless in Brunswick. I don't have to do that, except for the fact that there's something on the inside
Mm-hmm.
that says if I do it,
Mm-hmm.
somebody will be relieved of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
The playing field would be more fair. Somebody who was going to be left out will be brought in. That's what this campaign is about to me. And it's not about Keisha Gibson Carter. It's about that young man who might not have a chance if we don't put together a program that will shepherd him out of poverty
Mm-hmm.
into prosperity, out of desperation into viability.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is about for me. This is and even all the way back from the time, and John will tell you, all the way back from the time he was on council 30 some years ago. This is all we've been about, was making sure that the people who have been left out will be included. That's
Yeah.
what this is about.
And to that point, it reminds me of when I first met John, and I would talk to him and Chuck, and I thought, okay, what do these guys want from me? Why are they so invested? And there hasn't been a time from the time I met John to now that he's asked anything of me in terms of benefiting him or furthering who he is economically, and the same for you. And so when I think about our work together, it sums up the intent that I have as mayor, and that is to be citizen led and policy driven. And when I think about citizen led, Pastor Small, I I think more of you and how important it is to listen to the people and carry the voice of the people, to carry the agenda of the people, to stay in the trenches, to stay on the wall. That's what I get from you. Um, the policy driven piece, John, is where I add you as the other bookend, where nothing really matters in terms of being citizen led unless we can attach it to a policy so that it actually becomes a living,
Yeah.
active, moving uh, piece whereby people can actually feel and touch and experience what it is we're working on as opposed to the rhetoric. And so I want to drill down in these next few minutes that we have. I appreciate the love fest, I really do. But my intent is to get work done and to do the work in the will of the people. We have asked the question, is Savannah a community or a commodity? What is it that we have become? Who are we? And I think we come closer to the answer when we look at the landscape of this election.
Mhm.
Pastor, I want you to, well, both of you can chime in because you can equally provide some information here. The field of candidates, when we look at who's running and how many people are running, right? And then I want to talk about the money and how that measure up. When we look at the field of people, straight away, I think about a us and them. Their team has far more challengers than our team. And when
Mhm.
I I'm talking about the minorities on council. And by minority, I don't mean gender and I don't mean race. I mean the vote, the weight of the vote. I'm
Mhm.
part of the voting minority. Myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Lanier. Alderwoman Blakely has one challenger. Alderwoman Lanier has no challengers, and I'm running. On the other side, you have one candidate with three challengers in the third district. In the second district, you have two challengers. In the fourth district, you have two challengers. In the fifth district, you have one challenger. And in the sixth district, you have three challengers.
Mhm.
That 10, 11, I wasn't keeping up. Did I have enough fingers?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that's
What's
10
your
to
point?
1. That is by far the greatest indictment there. Let's start there. That's one dynamic. And then I'm going to shut up and let y'all talk. The second thing is, for the first time in the history of politics in Savannah, there is not a Republican or a white person, male or female, in the race. Okay, guys, take it away.
Well,
And
here,
between all of them, they have raised more money. The majority has raised more money in the election than any previous administration. Go for it.
well, here's the deal. In this case, the powers that be, the good old boys, basically are trying to get the best government they could buy for themselves. This is a purchasing of the mayoral seat. Just the idea. You got to know now. John's been around about 30 years. I've been doing this inside for 50. I'm 73 years old. In my 20s, I was involved all the way back to Mayor Rostakis. I mean, and knew about the inside track since Malcolm McLean, which no, people who had people who were born in the last 50 years might not even know that name. But what you need to understand is the amount of money given to the mayor is obscene. It is the purchasing of the seat by no stretch of the imagination. If 4 years later, 48 months, less than 48 months later, one person is given by the business community more than the entire slate of candidates, those who won and those who lost at the last election, something's off here. Now, I want to take a minute to read a statement. You know, I like show and tell. This is,
I know that. I
you
recognize that.
know that, you know where I got it from.
Yeah.
So, I got it from you guys. So here's what I want you to understand. That figure is obscene. This is the purchasing of a person. No question about it. Not even not. And he wrote or said, and this is a quote from WJCL from October the 31st, 2019. And I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read it succinctly. The disturbing numbers clearly tell the story. This is Van Johnson. Our business leaders and special interests have heavily invested in Mayor DeLoach. Eventually, those investments have to pay dividends to these investors. My campaign, by contrast, consists largely of donations under $100, many of these donations being less than $50, which represent the benevolence of those who can't write big checks, but who believe that Savannah can be and do better. Fortunately, Savannah is not for sale. This is Mayor Van Johnson's statement.
Yep.
Fortunately, Savannah is not for sale, and as mayor, I will be unbought and totally dedicated to serving the needs of the entire community. These are his words.
Well,
Unbought until 2023, and
my
And
now
house,
he's
the, the
now he's been
tables have
purchased.
turned. The tables have turned 180 degrees. Van Johnson is now the candidate of big money. Um, I think less than 80 people account for 2/3 of all his contributions. Think about that. In a community of 150,000 people, there are 80 deep-pocketed businesses and individuals out there that are willing to give the maximum under the law, $3,300, to Van Johnson to be certain that the status quo, business as usual, whatever language you care to use, is maintained. And I think one of the reasons you see the incredible obscene, as you described it, Pastor Small, amount of money is because of the 2019 election. That is, they
Yeah.
don't want to let that baby's got to be stillbirthed. Okay, it cannot survive because it threatens everything that they have created for themselves, which is, of course, a lot of disparity and canal districts and arenas and bricks on Broughton Street. They like the lay of the land. We threatened it in 2019, and that was abhorrent. And they
Mhm.
will not take any chances this time around. So they are flooding the zone with money. I mean, Van is going to wind up paying uh, somewhere 50, 60, $70 per vote, assuming he gets close to half.
Yes.
Kesha, you're probably at about $2 a vote. So you're the grassroots candidate, like it or not. I personally like it. I like
Yeah.
the secular view of this election uh, because it's a little more logical and grounded in, metrics. But I, I I like the fact that you pointed out the number of challengers on the other side in the district races. That is something I had not considered.
Yeah. And so for me, when I looked at that, John, when you compare that to, say, Bernetta Bryant Lanier, with no challengers, it says that she's a strong contender and she's done a great job. And when you compare that to the number of people who are opposing this group, you can't help but see that if they were, in fact, or if the perception was that they were doing a good job, they would not have as many challengers. Is how that came to me somewhat, how the same notion of there not being a Republican or white person in the race. Let's weigh in on that.
Well, here's the question: why not? The question I always,
I mean, we've always had one. Is Savannah.
we have always had a white person running for mayor. Now, it's
Or
not that it's not that it's unreasonable to just have African Americans running for mayor, but the business community, the good old boys, the downtown guys who've done extremely well, who can get anything passed because of Van and the clique he's had on council.
Right.
They have they understand that if they keep him, they will get richer by the minute. We have spent money that we haven't had on things that we haven't needed for years.
Exactly.
Now we have this flood of money as a result of them overtaxing us. We have when you and Bernetta and Alicia fought to try to roll back the tax rate, and he with smoke and mirrors said, "No, we got the lowest rate. We got the lowest rate." But he did not say this is going to reduce your taxes
but we
because he
so
because
much.
he knew the assessments are going to be a
Yeah.
windfall.
It was greedy. It was greedy. They could have rolled back even even lower than 1987 levels because the
Yeah.
digest went up 25, 30%. So they can't even be honest with us. And when I get these mailers and listen to Van say, and Nick and Linda, that this is the lowest millage rate, I mean, technically, yeah, they're correct. But in reality, they're dead wrong.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing.
Not the lowest that it could be. And the other thing is, we've been focusing so much on the millage rate because that's the biggest earner. But we also haven't focused on these other slush funds that they continue to create, like
Mhm.
increasing the percentage on our parking fee. I haven't received an answer from that. Piece is the increase to your water bill. People don't recognize that the water bills have been increased. And Van got a low blow in during one of the forums where he stated that we voted against giving police a raise when he knows full well we voted against the entire budget, which
Of
encompassed.
course, of course. He's not being transparent. He's not
Right.
being forthright.
We were voting against his security detail. We were voting against the car that he has. We were voting against renovation of his office and the city manager's office. We were voting against increasing people's water bill, increasing people's taxes. You know,
Doubling the PR and marketing budget from
yeah,
600,000 to $1.2 million in an election year.
or creating these enormous parachutes for your friends who are directors of nonprofits. And oh, and let's not talk about the ethics complaints and the low blows. You allow your 25-year tenure, your 20-year tenure as council member and mayor to come down to, oh, I know how to behave, when you yourself create and manufacture the drama, like having your friend and significant other of a nonprofit file an ethics complaint, or having your majority file an ethics complaint on something that does not fit. Never in the history of this city have you had such minute filings of, it's essentially weaponizing procedures of our local government. And the media has just run amok. And, the totality of where we are here in Savannah, it rests on the shoulders of our media, both print and television. And they now have an opportunity to get it halfway right. And I'm making an appeal to them to do the right thing. Because if they had not followed through and followed up on the sensationalism of our council, as opposed to focusing on the fact that we've had 4 city managers in 4 years,
Yeah.
how
Yes.
functional is that? Where's the civility?
Well,
The fact a surplus as we close out every budget year, we've had a surplus. We do not have a zero-based budget. In the midst of that, amidst that surplus, we've continued to increase people's property taxes. We've increased to create these slush funds. We've attempted SPLOS. They got the win on the hotel T-SPLOS. They got the win on the hotel motel tax. But when does it stop? When does it end? But fortunately for us, gentlemen, the rhetoric that has ensued under the Gold Dome has not kept pace with the reality of what people are feeling in our community.
and social media is equalizing very rapidly
Oh my God.
that bias that exists in the mainstream media. Okay.
Yeah.
30 years ago, TOC was the biggest distorter and championing
That's
of,
right.
of special interests. Okay. We've seen shifts in these markets. Well, social media, I mean, between what Julius has done with ATR, what Chuck and I have done with Better Savannah, what Eric Curl has done with the Savannah agenda, we're reaching, more people than the nightly news because of streaming.
Political action committee.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So we're coming up to the emperor has no clothes moment, and I sure hope it's this election cycle, but there's no stopping this trend line. Tranquility, decorum, those are code words for business as usual. Don't disrupt it.
Yes.
Leave everything alone. You might make things worse.
Mhm.
Nonsense.
Well, here's the thing. Let me go to that. I'm not talking about Keisha's race at this point. I'm gonna bring you another race to make you this point this out for everybody. Okay.
Which one?
So Rossler decides he's going to run against Alicia. And he says that he's decided to run because of civility. So I want to ask everybody who might be listening and everybody who might be looking at this or who hear this at any point in time in the future. Can you name one thing that Rossler has proposed in the process of campaigning over the last few months for anything or anybody on any subject, on any cause, or anything that he said, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do about taxes. This is what we need to do about the police. This is what we need to do about crime. He hadn't said a thing.
Nope.
So if you're wanting the office, it's like me courting Sheila and saying, well, the only thing I want to do is kiss you. I just want to kiss you, kiss you, kiss you, kiss you. And I'm not going to work. I'm not going to provide for you. I'm not going to protect you. I'm not going to do anything else except I'm going to be nice to be with. No, we need more out of you, Mr. Rossiter, than this. I'm going to go along to get along, because that's really all he's saying.
Yeah.
And it's been worth,
Sure.
and it's been worth $177 additional $1,000. Okay.
You're
$177.
getting what, dude? You're getting rewarded for what?
With nothing, no agenda on the table at all.
You
Now,
can't make
he hasn't said he's going to do any single, not one single thing.
you
Now,
can't make
no, you can't make it up.
Yeah.
But I want to go to another point. And I talked about this on Saturday night. And I've talked to John about this. And I've talked to John Hall about this. The mere fact that for the last 2 years, a little over 2 years, the city of Savannah has not had an executive session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, John, you sat on the county commission. I've talked to a couple of county commissioners. I've talked to a couple of school board members. I've talked to some mayors and council people from other areas and other jurisdictions, Pooler, Bloomingdale, and such. It is impossible to consciously understand how in 2023 the mayor of Savannah would not have one executive session. Now, John, you was on the county commission. Can you fathom that even being possible?
No, I can tell you in the entire time that I was on the commission, which was short of a full term, but almost 3 years. I would probably say once, maybe twice, we had no business to call for an executive session. Once or twice.
Out of all the meetings.
Out of 150 meetings. Okay. Once or twice. It's like agenda access. I spent an afternoon Googling the 14 largest cities in the state of Georgia. I then reduced them down to which ones were city manager form of governments. That left me with 11. And if I couldn't find it in their charter, I called the clerk of their council and asked, what's your protocol or requirements to get something on the agenda? Not one single city in the state of Georgia has the threshold levels that we have. They basically all will allow anything to get on the agenda by a lone elected official, provided it's turned in by the publishing deadline for full disclosure. Van runs around saying they're wrong. They're wrong. This is how it is all across the state of Georgia.
Right.
This is not unusual. They're wrong. I mean, how you can distort the truth to those levels and call yourself a head of a city is beyond me. It's just patently lying.
Well, and now we see why the first district is in the state that she's in. And I think what Savannah truly has to come to grips in terms with, my husband is a coach. He's one of the winningest coaches in this city. He's very good at what he does. He says to me, Kesha, everybody wants to be on a winning team.
Yes.
And for so long, Van has made people think I often say that he's masterfully manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
And he's skillfully unscrupulous. um, in his behavior, because for 20 years, this individual, and I would imagine that he's did a little bit of good along the way, nothing really significant when you look at the first district. People now have to come to grips. This is as serious as I'm going to get here. People now have to come to grips in terms with recognizing that it's okay to change teams when you're no longer with the winner. You know, I worked in the area of domestic and sexual violence for most of my career. Nothing was more difficult in my work than convincing a domestic violence victim of how strong she was to endure emotional abuse, to
Yeah.
endure physical abuse, to endure verbal abuse. When I would ask them to look at how strong you had to be to take that blow, to take that belittling word, to have your feelings hurt. Do you know the strength it took you to endure that? I want you to now start retraining your brain to use that same strength to recognize that you're better than that. And what we want to say to Savannah is you're better than what you have been receiving. No longer is it enough to just vote for somebody because of relationship, friendship, a kinship, or an affinity. I asked a gentleman today when I was at the Longshoreman Hall. He said to me, it was very nice. He shook my hand and he said, "I like you, but I'm with Van." And I said, "That's okay. It's okay for you to be with Van. But can you answer me this question? Can you answer what is it that he has done since he's been in office that you can touch, that you can feel, that you sense different? What is the biggest problem?" And another question was, what is the biggest problem that you have in community? Has that problem been solved? If you're with him, have you contacted him to solve that problem, sir? And so I just had a sincere conversation. I said, it's okay to like a person. And that's the biggest problem that I've had with people who I have befriended in my political and professional life. I've had to be dismissive of people and dismiss people whose work and success of my work depended on their work. And although we were friends and we were buddies, we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, talked about hair and kids, and I enjoyed them. But when your watch is related to my watch and my work and you fall short on it, I can't uphold you on somebody else's hurt and pain. So, Savannah, I say all of this to say it's no longer okay to be taken through a barren desert, thinking that the leader is going to lead you to water, only to get to a mirage of what appears to be water, to see and learn that it's dirt.
Kesha, it's Stockholm syndrome is really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
African American community in Savannah, long before I got here, was preyed upon and harmed just systematically.
That's right.
And now they got a few people elected and they think that all their problems are solved. No, those people sold out. Those
Yes.
people
Yeah.
gave away the opportunity and the moment to do the easy thing. The art of this is being able to tell people the truth and not make them mad.
Well, I don't know how much I've been doing that, because one of the things that I say, and people are not excited about it, but it's the God honest truth, and it's what I love. It's what God loves. He loves truth, and so
Amen.
it's also a reason why I have not aligned myself with any party affiliation, and why I don't harp on the piece related to race, because when I say that elitism and classism has hurt us more than racism, it's the God honest truth.
That's facts.
It's the caste system, and Savannah's got a brutally difficult.
40 years, we have had African American leaders at almost every top level in this city except for sheriff. We've had Black DA, black mayor with a majority council, black county chair with a majority commission, black state senators, black state representatives, black police chief, black fire chief. We've been black, black, blackety black, and you know what? And all
Well,
the time.
I'm glad
But
you're saying it.
how?
I'm glad you're saying it.
That's
But
right.
you have to tell
You can't say it, John.
now.
I can't. I can't.
You have to tell the truth and shame the devil. And that's the only way we are going to get over this hurdle. And maybe I'm just a person who's crazy enough with nothing to lose. I took a huge, I took a L coming
You
to
are.
political office. I took
Yeah.
a big loss, a big risk. And now that I'm here and I haven't sold out, yes, I've been offered the dinners in the Chatham Club, the rides in the private jet. I don't need anybody to pay for my child's tuition in college. Do we have everything we need and what? No, I struggle just like the next person. But what I am not going to do is have served on the watch of the lowest of the low of people in our community, from
Yeah.
victims of rape to child molestation to people who were homeless, seniors who were insecure, and youth who were vulnerable there's no way I can take that blended social experience that I have touched and felt,
Yeah.
not standing
I,
out personal story. I
I,
can't take that to City Hall and fall short on these people's watch. I
will you
won't.
guys indulge me for a minute? I've got a question that only you can answer. And we won't name the African American sellouts because we don't need to. Not for this question. What I want to know is, how do they justify that in their own minds? What is the rationalization that allows them to think that they're doing great things, yet they're doing absolutely nothing?
I
I
have,
got that. I got that. I can answer that one.
Okay.
I can answer that easily. They think that the body politic is a game, and they think they are playing the game well when they deceive the people and they vote for them again, and they deceive the people and they vote for them again. They believe it's actually simply a game. They don't look at the consequences. Keisha's talking about the people who are hurt, people being left behind, people being put out with no place to go. They think all of that's a game. I've talked to them. I'm a behavioralist. That's what they think. Now, the difficulty is today I spent a few hours with a family whose whose son and brother were killed by the Savannah Police Department. Maybe justified, maybe not. But the point of the matter is, in 30 months in the city of Savannah, for the first time in the history of Savannah, 6 black men lost their lives at the hands of the police department. Most people who are listening to this and hearing this right now,
in a 12-month period.
in a 12-month period,
Mhm.
most people who are listening to this right now don't know that fact.
Mhm.
They're hearing it for the first time.
Mhm.
We changed chiefs of police, and that automatic killing at ease of black people, of young black men, all but dried up. Now, it's important who's in charge. When the young man allegedly was hung by himself with a shoestring in the headquarters downtown,
Handcuffed.
okay, handcuffed to a bar and supposedly hung himself with a shoestring.
Yeah.
When his mother and sister finally got a chance to talk to the mayor and the chief of police, they apologized for having not talked to her all that time. And I said, it's been 30 days, and the mother said 34. She was counting, Miss Francis had been counting the callous disregard of her and he was her caregiver. This man was her caregiver, lived in his house with his mother. And y'all know I'm sensitive to that because my mother's 101 years old. And I want people to understand this. You've got to have some kind of a rock for a heart. And then you want to trick us. You get to the last 70 days before an election, and you start plucking heroes from the community that are all black, every one of them black, to name honorary streets for. You jerking us around with platitudes. How do you decide to take? But the thing is, he believes we got below the brains.
It works.
Okay, yeah. It's not going to work this time.
It's not working with us.
You got to
answer the question.
Why do we do this? Why?
I have an explanation. I have just not a total explanation, but I think a significant cog in this equation. And that is when blacks get into positions of power, they look to the white power brokers, and they're really adept at this. They wrote the book on it. And if they say it's okay, it's okay. So they're emulating the people that they think they've displaced a little bit, but really they've just been brought into a special club. So their humanity, their history, that becomes secondary to pleasing your newfound friends in the oligarchy.
Yeah, and that's a sad commentary. It's really sad because it reminds me of the notion of me, my four, and no more. You know, it's so many of us who make it and we become the first black or the only black, and we think that we should stay there and keep that. When there is a Sankofa requirement, there is a Sankofa recommendation that we reach back and bring forward, that we never forget where we came from. And I think, well, no, I know I represent an anomaly when it comes to politicians. And I've said before, and I say now, I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant at heart. And I don't want to know how to play the game. And I think the two of you both will agree that we actually did what we said we were going to do in 2000. Yes. And that was, we didn't come to play the game. We came to change the game.
You lit the fuse.
And guess what? Guess what? We have changed the game to the extent that there have been record-breaking numbers logged at every single level, from the number of candidates entering the race to the amount of money that's raised.
Exactly.
It's insane. It's really crazy. Now, finally, while I have you two, I want to check the box on, we did executive session. I want to also say to you that we have been buoyed having a workshop, which is the prelude to our city council. We've been buoyed a workshop for 4 consecutive meetings now. They may decide to throw one in there now that I'm talking about it, but we don't have it on the agenda for this coming Thursday. But what I want to say is, we'll get your take on before I leave with the money piece. From where I'm sitting, I see a lot, and I look at things with a different eye, from a different lens. When we say they have given or they have contributed to the candidates and the incumbents, when I think about the money that's poured into these elections, and I'm thinking, how could these people take their hard-earned money and pour into politics? Why would you give the least significant people on council all of this money? You're giving all of this money to people who can't make their subjects and verbs agree. They don't dot their I's and cross their T's. They, what is who does? These are smart businessmen and women. These are upstanding citizens. If we go through the roll and start naming names, people will be blown away at who is contributing to these candidates.
It doesn't matter. You can speak in emojis as long as you vote the way they want you to vote.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
absurd.
I try to do almost everything right, and I become the most talked about, most ridiculed, most criticized, most judged councilwoman. And this person is like, where do we do this at? But I'll take it. I'm a
Okay, here's what you need to understand. 3 or 4 months into in this administration, back in 2020, when they wrote about you, and I pointed it out in the article when we had our skull session, when they wrote about you, the first thing they said is she needs to change the way she is because she would be so electable if she not do this or do that.
Yeah.
That's what they kept saying because they recognized the most dangerous person to their agenda was Keisha Gibson Carter. I told you that. For the reason I'm a bother is because I don't need anything. I'm that black preacher who don't need anything from anybody. Okay? You really don't need anything. You got Sam Carter. You got a husband. You got a real husband. A manly muscle, good looking, super dark skinned
well,
brother,
more than
almost
that, more than,
almost black as me.
I have Jesus more than him. I
And
have,
you got the Lord.
yes.
Here's where I'm
You
going
guys
with
got to
this.
keep
Watch
it
this.
secular. Come on.
It is important to understand that when you are an effective speaker,
Yeah.
when you are an articulate purveyor of truths, you will be hated.
You will be the target.
You will you will be Barbara Jordan. You will be Sojourner Truth. You will be Mary McLeod Bethune. You're going to be hated. You got to remember Martin Luther King was called an outside agitator.
And
Hosea Williams, while he was here in Savannah, was called the troublemaker. John Lewis coined the phrase good trouble because he was getting in so much trouble.
Muhammad
He was
Ali.
actually being trouble to the system.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, but he knew how to govern. Martin Luther King knew how to care, and Sojourner knew how to make a difference in her day. And every once in a while, we'll get somebody like Keisha Gibson Carter, and you heard me say this over and over. There's no real replacement for you guys because only a few come along. I've been in this thing for 6 decades. We don't get that many of you guys. We don't get that many of
Yeah.
people who come along who don't have a personal agenda, who actually sees the pain and the suffering, who cared about the people being put out of Clearview, who argued about the fact that they moved the disabled veterans and people out of Chatham apartments on Abercorn Street, who's understanding that if you put the people out of Yamacraw, they have no place to go.
Yeah.
And they don't care. The man says Yamacraw who and Yamacraw for what? That's
Yeah.
what Van said.
Yep.
The way,
And you got to remember now, Yamacraw, the ones who are registered to vote, and many of them are, Yamacraw voted for Van.
mhm. Yeah. And I want to say to all of that is again, I in no way will ever give consideration to myself being compared to the greats. But what I will do is recognize that, at some juncture after you have been uh, criticized and uh, put down and belittle, you have to, it's healthy and it's necessary to be your own cheerleader. So what I say to all of that is I know who I am, I know whose I am, I know that I'm smart enough, I know that I'm good enough, and a whole lot of people like me and love me. And so those are things that no one can take away from me, but it's all of the things and the attributes that I bring to the table to give and to share with Savannah. But I think that the greatest thing about anything I would accept or agree or think of myself is that I have a very, very healthy ego, and that I almost don't have one. And that's the greatest attribute of a true leader, in that you're selfless. And what I want to say to all the candidates who are running, and I'm so excited, I've never seen a situation, it's so weird, the way we are on this trail, where you have so many people who are actually running and vying for the same post. But like last night after the forum, like we all went to dinner together with all the candidates, like sitting together across from each other. It's like they're running against each other, and everybody's getting along, and they're happy because they truly and sincerely want what's best for Savannah. And I really believe, as um, you know, crazy as relationships are on council, as awful as behaviors are on council, I really believe that most of those individuals I ran with in 2019. Now, mind you, I did not know any of them except for Dietrich Leggett. And I hadn't talked or spoken to him in decades, well, maybe a decade, uh, before we encountered each other on the campaign trail. But the thing is, I believe that they all entered the arena from a spirit of altruism. I really believe that they wanted to do good. They wanted to see change. They wanted to push their missions. And so what I want to say to the candidates, if you are a person who is not secure within yourself, if you are easily pliable, if you can uh, be mesmerized by the media. And that was the other thing. I've been there, done that. I've been on TV before. I wasn't excited about having my name in the paper. None of that excited me. But people, and then the money piece. If you are a person with little means, and you are not secure with your own, if what you have is not enough for you, politics is not the place for you, because you can easily be picked off and made vulnerable when you become mesmerized by the media, your name in the paper, or you making a headline, or if someone takes you and wine and dine you at the Chatham Club, or invite you to their fancy dinner party or their big mansion or Forsyth Park. Those are the things that you become, sucked in by. And then there's this other piece that I've resisted, and that is allowing people to make you a celebrity. Politicians are not celebrities, they are servants. And when you allow your public, your constituents, to make you a celebrity, it slowly starts to chip away at who you are as a servant. And then you find yourself on that slippery slope. I just want to put that little piece in, but I want you guys to weigh in on you talked about the money. Now let's talk about the names. This is going to be a true, I have coined, my campaign is turning the corner. And so we are turning the corner, and we now have Davida against Goliath. This is a true and Goliath story here. So we have some heavy hitters that have been announced. That we have Nakima Williams, who is with the Democratic Party. Democratic Party coming down to stump for Savannah's opponent. You have Stacey Abrams, former gubernatorial candidate, coming to stump for Savannah's opponent. And then you have Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has been announced to come, where it was announced that she's coming to stump for Savannah's opponent. And she's the former mayor of Savannah and President Biden. So when we see this happening, in conjunction to the $700,000, and it's laughable that Nakima Williams is coming from the Democratic Party when, John, what percentage of money would you say he got from Republicans? This is like, it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get any better than this. But weigh in, guys. What I'm feeling really good about myself. I would have never imagined that I would have this caliber of women coming to help an individual take me out of taking care of my people. What do you have to say?
They have no idea what Van is. They have no idea.
It's a political favor. They have no basis in reality as to, as Pastor Small says, who Van is.
They have no
they're
idea.
returning a DNC
Yeah.
favor, and that's it. The sheer fact that he's bringing these heavy hitters down here tells us that he's very worried about his election.
Pow.
Yeah,
Trust me.
it
If
wouldn't be
nothing
calm with
else, now I've been prognosticating these things for decades, and I've said this more than anything else. What people think sometimes is your Achilles is actually your brace. It helps you stand up stronger. Here's the thing. Someone said to me the other day, well, she can't beat Van because he's got money. He's got way more money than her. They forget.
Our last opponent did too.
But they forget, wait a minute, that's what I'm finna say. They forget that Keisha, Alicia, Bernetta, Leggett, and Linda were all broke on the campaign trail. And all of them won. Money don't vote.
That's right.
Money doesn't go into the voting booth. And if there's nothing else I've understood over these 40, 50 years doing what I do, is that we have elected consistently people that the people could feel. Julian Bond was spit and polish. Julian Bond had on $1,500 shoes. He had on $2,000 suits, monogrammed shirts. John Lewis didn't have on anything that matched and beat the bricks off it and went to Congress. Those are just the facts. My daughter and her son, I won't let my son-in-law forget it, came in there because they thought I was going to get my feelings hurt. Pops, this is my son-in-law. Pops, I don't see how Alicia's going to win. You know she's too loud. Pops, people say she costs too much. I said, y'all don't even know what's going on. But Pops, come on, man. I don't want you to be disappointed. I said, I'm not gonna be disappointed. At the end of the day, Alicia got more votes than everybody running citywide. Why? Because a lot of people you can't even go by the polls. Because the people who vote in the numbers from our African American community, they're not gonna fill out a poll. But they're gonna go to the polls.
Well,
And they voted by larger numbers for Alicia Miller Blakely than they did for anybody else. And Keisha, you were second. And you had more votes than the mayor then. And you're going to have more votes than the mayor now. Thank you very much.
John, you have a little bit of a different take.
Well, at the NAACP
Oh my God, that was
festival,
milk toast. It's an embarrassment. It's really.
yeah, they're real good at asking for donations, but they're dreadful at actually helping people understand what the candidates are all about. But Van is now trying to explain the obscene amount of money he's collected. You don't do that if you're not worried about it. So how do you say I'm a man of the people? I'm so concerned about all the citizens of Savannah that don't make enough or have enough or been shut out. And then you take money from the hotel industry and the tourism industry, the very people that have the lowest wages and the largest employment groups. 32,000 people are employed in the hospitality industry. Half of them are making $11 or $12 an hour. And this guy's taking money from the hotel guys.
And from SCAD, and from the engineering firms, and from the architects, and from the law firms, all who do business with and have contracts from the city of Savannah in real time.
If there was some way to help connect these dots, and I think really that's what this show does, and that's what Leonard does, and that's what Chuck and I do. I mean, we are independent voices that are trying to correct the record and set in place what's really happening. And we were all successful in 2019. It's like the comet that crashed into Mexico and started the ice age. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened in 2019, and you were part of that impact. So I don't think we're going back. No way. We are on a new trajectory, and this sort of rhetoric will wear out, get thinner and thinner, and ultimately collapse.
Well,
So
you
keep
guys,
the North Star, on the horizon, and we'll all be guided to a more equitable. You're not gonna be a perfect mayor. You're gonna make mistakes, but I trust you that on balance you are going to represent and deliver policy for
yes,
people, not for the tourism and hospitality and development community. It's
yes.
very simple.
And and I want to say another thing about the money piece. And thank you for that, John. Um, this was a new revelation. This stuff just kind of falls in my lap. So I sit at this desk and I look at our agenda, and I look at how much money we are spending uh, every other week. Twice, spend a whole bunch of money at the city of Savannah. We write big checks. A lot of those checks are for cost overruns
Change orders.
and modifications. And oops, we didn't know this was here, right?
Right.
So when I started thinking about, I lost my point when I said this earlier. When I started to think about how much of these people's hard-earned money they're giving to these marginalized candidates, I thought, why would they do that? Well, the fact of the matter is, it's not their money. So this is a new thing, guys, I came up with.
That's it.
It's recycled taxpayer dollars. So when this engineering firm that cycles through our budget continually, when this architect and this law firm, they continually have these contracts cycling through our budget, and then, oh, by the way, we need an extra $400,000 because we didn't know this was here. These cost modifications, this is just money that we give them.
The same people that are on Van Johnson's
Yeah,
contribution list.
yeah,
I mean, come on,
but
people.
but
This is not
it
difficult.
connect the dots. I'm like, oh my God, it really isn't their money. It's taxpayer. So when you look at how much money is in this campaign, it's actually taxpayer dollars.
Well, here's the thing.
It's
Why
taxpayer.
wouldn't I give you a penny if you're gonna give me $1 back?
Of
Why
course.
would why wouldn't I give no, let's think about this. The city budget is now more than $500 million.
Yes.
You're talking about $500 million
Every
Mhm.
year.
So why can't I give Van Johnson? Why can't we get together and give Van Johnson $500,000 in order for us to be able to extract tens of millions of dollars from contracts and business?
Bingo.
It's just
It's
it just
it's
makes
the
sense.
DNA of
And,
Savannah.
and here's the thing that most people don't know. There's a process in the city of Savannah that should not exist. It's called legacy contracts.
Yes.
And what that means is we give a firm a contract, and
Mhm.
that contract, and Van champions this when it's been questioned, or he blows up. And you question it yourself, Keisha, and I've seen you do it, and he loses his mind because he knows he can't argue the fairness of giving a person a contract without competition, without bidding it for the fifth time or the fourth time over a 15-year period. They
Right.
have contracts that were done in 2007 that have been added on to and added on to and added on to without rebidding it. Simply, the people just have to come in and say, we
So
want this much, we want this much money to do this next phase.
right. So
And there's no bidding.
so along those lines, Pastor, I recently proposed an ordinance that I wanted the entire council to sign off on, and it was an order for an ethics ordinance to say that you would not vote on an item where you are actively receiving financial benefit from a petitioner, from a developer, from whatever. You cannot vote on it. I'm not saying you can't take the money, just don't vote on an item that comes before council. I haven't heard anything back from the city attorney or the city manager.
Well, they can't talk because Van will fire you. Van has enough. Van had. You got to understand. Van is Donald Trump Jr. He
Well,
will fire you. He likes he he realized that Chief Mentor was going to be bad for the election year, and got
well,
rid of
I didn't
him.
realize that until he went on vacation with him for a week to Germany on a taxpayer's dime and came back and resigned the next week.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because it was he
that's
had to
it.
get it. He had to get him out of here. He had
Well,
to get it. He had to get him out of here because of this election coming.
Listen,
And
it's
and
been the
and
Van
make sure you
show.
understand, Van does not love anybody but Van.
Van,
Don't
exactly.
fool yourself. Van is not. Listen, Van is not really for anybody getting elected to office, but Rossiter and Carroll, people who followed him down through these years, Purdy,
mm-hmm,
Palumbo,
mm-hmm.
Dietrich,
Dietrich. He
Linda.
hadn't said a mumbling word. Now he
So,
did let them ride his coattails to get some of the money, okay, because they wouldn't have raised anything. But he did let them ride the coattail. But he has not endorsed them. He has not championed them. And even when he's put together his some of his paperwork, he don't have them on it. They have followed him foot to foot for 4 years, and he does not have them as being viable to help him, and therefore he's not going to help them. Van is about Van. He ain't got chick or child. Van is about Van.
he does it, but he has a whole lot of real estate in the district. He represented it for
Oh
20.
yeah, well, now he's
Last
gotten over like a fat cat. And I want somebody to make sure you understand something. I've been watching campaigns forever, and I watched Eddie's campaign 4 years ago, and I've watched this campaign closely. But ask yourself a question: does the campaign Van has put together with 2 weeks left to go look like a $500,000 campaign?
With that, I'm
Van's finna walk home with some money, boy. Y'all don't. You can play with it, man, if you want to. I know chicken from Fatback. You cannot fool Mamie's son all day. I mean, you could do it in the morning, but by the afternoon, I'm gonna wake up on you, and I'm telling you, Van's gonna walk off with a bucket load of money. This campaign is his pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. See you
and
later. Bye.
it'll help fund his congressional campaign.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Come on, he's going to be term limited. He's going to hold back a whole bunch to prime his next political adventure, which is going to be federal.
Oh, let me answer this question somebody just asked on the thing about Terry Talbot and the EOA and how the teachers doing. Well, I got teachers who work for Terry Talbot, and I have a niece that works at EOA. They're doing fine. Terry Talbot is the bomb when it comes to running the EOA. Honey, hush. He
Well,
can't.
one thing I can say about EOA, when I call, they answer the phone, and when I
They
send
do.
somebody to get help and assistance, they generally get the assistance that they are requesting. That's what I have to. That's my experience to answer your question. I haven't heard anything negative about the organization from people petitioning for support or staffers, and I know a handful of them who work over there. And I'm fond of that foster grandparents program. And so, with that, I've kept you all way longer than I planned. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for obliging. One of the things that's really important to me is that we educate the public and we make known those things that they ordinarily would not have knowledge of, but for platforms like this and people like you. And so I want to say thank you for continuing to engage and to invest into my tenure on council. But most of all, I'm grateful that neither of you have ever asked me for anything in terms of in exchange for anything that I do on council outside of wanting good, greater good for the city of Savannah. We'll come back to you next week and talk more about things that are happening in our city. We have a lot brewing with Yamakra. We had a 7-month-old baby found dead at one of the units there. We still do not have the murder of Desiree Gilliard solved. The apartments, the units there are still deplorable. The conditions are still awful there. So we just want you to know, Yamakra, that we're still working on your behalf, and we're trying. We're trying. And with that, we want to acknowledge that we do have a city council meeting this Thursday at 6:30, and we want you to tune in and pay attention. Believe it or not, guys, it's a very short agenda. I don't know, and we don't have a workshop, so maybe somebody has something else to do. Who knows? Uh, Maybe they have to get out of town on your dime. We'll be reporting back to you in terms of the expenses that travel expenses of said individual as well. So with that, I want to say thank you all. Thank you both for being here with me tonight. If you want to have final words, you're welcome to do so.
I just want to make sure people understand that Yamacraw, Fraser Homes, and Caton Homes on the chopping block, they would not have rezoned those areas if they did not have a plan. It took me a while to get down to the bottom line of it, but what they want to do is privatize those projects. They have neglected them to the point where they're trying to justify tearing them down. So where does that 700-800 people, families, which is, well, 700-800 housing units, but how many people? 2,000 or 3,000 people. Where do they go in Savannah where there are no Section 8 housing? What happens to these folks? Do you care? If we elect Keisha Gibson Carter to the office of mayor, it will be a sea change. The rich will still get richer, but the poor will not be neglected.
Thank you, Pastor John.
Well, a stopped clock is right twice a day.
Hmm.
You have been fearless, tenacious. Sometimes, you don't take the advice that I give you, which is fine. But overall, you have kicked off a renaissance, and I think the city will be forever. You will have a place in history, Keisha, that you earned, and you earned it well. And there's no going back to the old ways. This election will probably be the censure, but if not, the next election certainly will be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
Sure.
John. Thank you so much, Pastor Small. We really appreciate you. And I did want to make one point here. When it comes to downtown, I just want to say this because we had another homicide to occur last night in City Market. When we talk about downtown, we sometimes group them like people do with City Council. We group residents with downtown and tourism. There is a separate and distinct difference between tourists and residents. And the residents of downtown are just as over it as we are who live in other areas of the city. So I just make that clear because we said earlier and I just kind of cringed and didn't get a chance to go back and say something. But downtown residents, we hear you. We hear you. And we're there. With that, I want to say good night. And I am immensely grateful to you both. Savannah, we love you. Good night.
Remember in November.
Go over in October. Early voting is November 3rd. Now through November 3rd. Civic Center, Eisenhower, and the library. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night, baby. God bless.
I like that.